Did she wake you up to tell you that it was only a change of plan? Dream up, let me fill your cup with the promise of a man. Hey friends, how's it going? David Potts here with Song Notes, and today I'm pumped to be bringing you a lesson for Harvest by Neil Young, one of my favorite songs to play by him. It's the second track from his 1972 album of the same name. So I'm going to jump right into this one. As usual, I have the 4-page song sheet for this. It's made with care, gives you everything you need to know. All the lyrics are on page 1. I have 3 different strumming patterns, a beginner one, an intermediate one, and a full one, all mapped out for you, as well as tabs showing you how to play the 1-chord progression this song uses. You learn the progression once, you apply the strumming pattern of your choice, and you can play the entire thing. But I'll walk you through it, whether you're a bit more advanced or you're starting off with guitar. I want to sort of meet you where you are so you can go where you want to go. Okay, so you're in good hands here. Check out the rest of my Neil Young lessons, my video lessons, as well as my song sheets over on my website, playsongnotes.com. They're waiting for you there. But with this said, let's get into this lesson. Thanks to all of you who are supporting me through membership on Patreon. It's appreciated, and you make this possible. So let's do it. Let's look at Harvest by Neil Young. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to kick this one off diving right into the intro to this song. So it's just 2 chords, but the reason I'm showing you this intro is I want to talk about the strumming, right? The full strum Neil Young uses throughout the song is effectively something where you pluck the bass note of whatever chord you're playing, and then you do an up, down, up, okay? It sounds really simple, and if you were to play it for just this D, it would sound like this. This is what we're going to work up to, mind you, okay? Really easy going, nothing too crazy going on, but this is tricky. When I first learned it, I had trouble. Now, here's the thing. I would not recommend starting exactly with that strum, unless you have already learned that strumming pattern and you sort of have it down and it's something you're comfortable with. When I first learned this song many years ago, I was watching Justin's lesson, Justin Sanderco, and he talks about the strumming pattern, and I had a hard time doing that first up strum, right? Because you're doing bass, and before you even get your pick down here, you have to be thinking about the next up strum, and I had never really done that before, right? So what I would recommend doing is starting with something simple, right? I'm going to show you this simple version, this basic strum. It's just the bass and a down strum, right? So it's bass, down strum, bass, down strum, bass, down strum. That way you keep it really simple. You have the same tempo, same counting, same chords, same bass notes, right? But it's sort of getting you used to the bass note strumming, for the bass note and then the full strum, right? And you're doing that for the 2 chords back and forth, right? Now, from there, and I'm going to walk you through all the chords this song uses, but I just want to introduce this concept for you because we're going to need to do this for every chord. The next version up, though, is to take this simple one and then go to the intermediate version where you're going to do a bass, down, up, bass, down, up, bass, down, up. So what this does is it sort of gives the bass note a bit of breathing room still, right? Bass, down, up, bass, down, up, which is nice. This helped me learn it, just doing this simplified version. But then when I was ready, here's the thing. When you do the bass, you're gonna have to bring your pick back up anyway to get ready for the down strum. So what you wanna do is for the full strum is bass, up, down, bass, up, down, up. So it all comes down to your right hand kind of having a simple down, up, 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 down, up. But of course, on the 1 and the 3 count, bass, up, down, up, bass, up, down, up, bass, up, down, up, bass, up, down, up. So this is the fundamental pattern this song uses. No matter what chord you're playing, bass, 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 right? We're adding in those light strums in between. What I just did right there was the whole progression that this song uses exclusively. Aside from those intro 2 chords, that 8-measure thing I just played you, that's the entire progression this entire song uses. So you learn it once, you can play the entire song. But again, this strumming pattern, I'll walk you through it in a bit for each chord, but I just want to introduce you this basic version, this intermediate version, and then the full version. And I want to encourage you, start with the basic version, okay? Don't feel like you need to jump right into that intermediate or that full version, because that's going to make it super tricky. I want you to learn these chords, learn the chord progression, get comfortable with the bass down strum, right? The bass up, the bass note, and then the strum that follows that pattern. You get comfortable with all those, then you can dial up and go from the basic version to the intermediate version to the full version. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful for you. And with that said, now let's look at all the chords we're going to need in this progression. And I have these written out in my sheet music for this, right? I have them written out in tab format, and this is basically, if you look at them in this top part here, it's sort of, if you were to play all the strings at once, it actually isn't terribly helpful necessarily, because ultimately, like I said, for every chord, we're going to do the bass strum, right? So let's look at them like this. So we have our D, right? 4th string is our bass note, and then you strum the thinnest 3 or 4 strings. And then our D over A, which is the same D chord, but the only difference is our bass note. Instead of the 4th string, it's the 5th string. Okay? So, and whenever you see these slash chords, typically that means you're going to be coming from the regular version of the chord to the slash chord, right? So right here, I'm going from a D to a D over A, D to a D over A. Something you just want to practice, right? Now, while we're on that topic, there is also this D sus2 with an A sharp bass note, an A bass note. All that is D, take off your thinnest string finger, and then use the 5th string as your bass note, okay? And we're gonna use that in the intro when we go from our D to D sus2 with the A bass note, and you repeat that, okay? Now, there's also an A major, a basic chord. The typical way to play it is with the 5th string bass note, okay? Now, sometimes we need to do an A with an E bass note, right? It's 5th string to 6th string, so 5th string to 6th string, 5th string, 6th string, okay? This is an A over E when you do the 5th string there. A little tip here, this is a bit advanced, it requires some just delicate motions with your fingers, but check this out. When I do the A, I typically will mute the low E string with my thumb, and then when I do the A with the E bass note, I left my thumb up, and I push my sort of, whatever finger's on the 4th string, I kind of let it bleed into the 5th string, so it kills the sound of the 5th string. So that way I go from the A. Watch these 2 fingers when I play this, right? A over E, A over E, A over E. Okay, that sort of keeps the bass notes clean. Whenever the 5th string is played, the 6th string is silent. Whenever the 6th string is played, the 5th string is silent, okay? We'll also have our G chord, 3rd, 2nd, open, 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 3rd. Honestly, I will frequently just sort of lean my ring finger into the 5th string, so the 5th string is muted. And honestly, when you're doing the bass note strum, I'm kind of only strumming the thinnest 3 or 4 strings anyway, so I don't really bother pushing down the 5th string note, to be honest. That's my own personal deal with that chord. Okay, now we have our B minor. This is probably the trickiest chord of the bunch. It's a bar chord. You need to bar all the strings on the 2nd fret, at least the thinnest 5 strings, and then just do an A minor shape. You know your A minor up here? Play that with your middle ring and pinky fingers, and then just slide it up 2 frets, and then bar the 2nd fret. So this is 2nd, 4th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd. Now, if you have trouble with this, I have a whole separate video teaching you B minor. You could just do the thickest 3 strings. This is like a power chord, a B power chord. It's a little bit easier because you're not having to do the whole bar and everything. Alternatively, you could do just the thinnest 4 strings. That way you're not having to bar anything, right? So watch my video on the B minor if you need help with that one. Then we have our E major. Open, 2nd, 2nd, 1st, open, open. Again, when I'm doing bass note E minor, bass note E major, I'm only strumming the thinnest 3 or 4 strings usually. But I keep my left hand in this position anyway. Okay, so those are the chords, and we're going to do the bass note of whatever chord you're playing, and then the full strum, or at least the thinnest 3 or 4 strings of the chord. That's what we're going to use for the entire progression here. So if we look at the progression, I actually have it tabbed out in my sheet music here, the basic version. So this is the verse, every verse uses this exact pattern, right? We're going to go from D to A to G then D over A, to D, then A, to A over E, then G, to A, to B minor, to E, to D, to D sus2 over A, and D sus2 over A. That's the whole thing. That's the entire song. And you could sing the lyrics of the song using just that. And I'll do that for you one time here, right? So the first verse would sound like, did I see you down in a young girl's town with your brother in so much pain? I was almost there at the top of the stairs with her screaming in the rain. Okay, and we're just going to repeat that whole thing. You can play the entire song, again, using that simple one bass note pluck and then one down strum. And you use the counting I have here. Again, this is in my sheet music if you do get it. Now here's the deal. From here, you could dial it up one notch and go from that basic strum to the intermediate strum, where instead of doing bass, down, bass, down, bass, down, bass, down, instead you would do bass, down, up, bass, down, up, bass, down, up, bass, down, up, right? Did she wake you up to tell you that there was only a change of plan? Dream up, let me fill your cup with the promise of a man. Okay, and again, from there, you can get even more advanced and then do the full strum, where you do the bass, bass up, down, up, bass up, down, up, bass up, down, up, bass up, down, up. So I'll do one more verse like that so you can hear what it sounds like. Did I see you walking with the boys, though it was not hand in hand? The sun-black face in a lonely place when you could understand. Did she wake you up to tell you that it was only a change of plan? Dream up, let me fill your cup with the promise of a man. Okay, so that's what you want to work up to. Now I will say there's one tricky part of this song, which is the transition from the G to the A to the B minor to the E. For me, this is the trickiest part of this whole progression because you're going from 4 different chords, one of which is that bar chord. You know, you're having to go from the G to the A to the bar chord and to the E. I made a whole separate video just on this topic. So the Cliff Notes version is, number 1, get comfortable with the basic strum version first. Don't jump right into the full strum and expect to get that transition. If it's difficult for you, dial down the strumming, slow it down, get comfortable with the transition and everything. Another tip is to use an A major voicing, which is effectively just your index finger barring the 2nd fret. Right? So you don't play the thinnest string, but what this does is it makes the transition from A to B minor a little bit easier. Since your index finger is barring the 2nd fret anyway for the B minor, I find that it makes it a little bit of an easier transition. The other tip I have is just to lean into the fact that the bass note buys you time, meaning you're not having to strum all the strings at once. You're doing the bass note on that first count, and then you're doing some up strums. So when you switch to the B minor, the advice, you can play this bass note before these 3 fingers are in place. It's all good, right? Because ultimately the bass note's what you're hearing first anyway. So while that bass note's ringing out, you can move those fingers into place. So check this out. I'll play it slow. Watch how I'm going to play the bass note before my other fingers are even in place. Again, check out my other video. If that section's giving you trouble, I have a deep dive just into those 4 chords with a bit more of a, just tackling the transition and making it hopefully a bit more manageable for you. Okay, so now you know the chords, you know the strumming, you have 3 different ways to strum it, you know the chord progression and everything. So you pretty much are in a good spot to play this song. The one thing I do want to talk about is the instrumental section. So after the 3rd or 4th verse, there is this It's basically an instrumental verse. It's the verse, but there's no singing over it. But you can kind of hear in the background of Neil's recording a little bit of a melody played on the guitar. So I have a tab that I've tabbed out. This is sort of my interpretation of what I hear Neil playing, right? And in case it's helpful to you, I want to offer this. I'll do it one more time. Okay, I'm a little bit sloppy in that B minor if I'm being totally honest, but with practice I think you could improve how that sounds, right? Or you just sort of muscle your way through it, keep a constant tempo. That's the most important thing. The way to think about this is look at the chords. You already know the chords. Put your hands in those shapes. So for the D, we're in a D shape. We're going from on the thinnest string, second to third to second, right? Then on the A, second to third to second on the second string. Then we go to the G. Now I'll use my ring finger down here, and then I'll go from open to second to open on the second string, right? And then I go to the D. But when you go to the D, you kind of want to favor the third and fourth strings, because that's really where the melody note is, and you don't want to bury the melody note. If you do a bright strum of the D, these notes are going to drown out the melody. We want that third string, second fret note to be the melodies. The first four chords. Okay? And when you're playing it, in general, I just try to keep a constant down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And the second half of this top line here, D, third fret, back to second fret, open, all on the thinnest string, right? To the A, okay? You can hear those filler strums, right? I'm not afraid to strum. Now this next line here, G, open, second, third, open, left middle, left pinky, to A, with the second string being the thinnest string we play. Okay, now the B minor, here's the deal. I don't play the fifth string. What I do is just do this version of the B minor. So you play the second, third, and fourth string, open first string, second fret first string. And then on the up strum, just before the 3 count, you're going to start your switch to the E. And when you do your up strum, capture the open thinnest 2 strings right there, and then go to your E bass note, right? So those first couple chords. Wait. Okay, one more time. Then you sort of just do the intro style for those last 4 chords. One more time, here we go. So there we have it there. What I'm going to do is play you the first couple verses of this song with the instrumental, just to give you an idea of what a full playthrough sounds like. I've already taught you everything you need to know. You just got to practice now. It's not going to come overnight. Get comfortable with those chords, the order of the chords, the bass note, and then the strum, and then pick your bass note strumming pattern that works for you. Okay, so I'll do the intro, the first couple verses, the instrumental, and then we'll be good to go. All right, let's do it. I see you down in a young girl's town. Your mother in so much pain. Was I almost there at the top of the stairs? The scream I wake you up to tell you that it was only a change of plan? Dream up, let me fill your cup with the promise of a man. Did I see you walking with the boys, though it was not hand in hand? With some black face in a lonely place when you could understand. Did she wake you